Then her Apache husband showed her true love. Maria had always lived a quiet life. Maria had always lived a quiet life. She grew up in a small town surrounded by the gentle hum of nature and the familiar faces of neighbors who had known her family for generations. Her childhood was simple but happy. She remembered running barefoot through the fields, collecting wildflowers, and listening to her grandmother's stories in the evening by the fireplace. But life felt safe and predictable, and Maria liked it that way. She never imagined that everything could change so suddenly, that her world could shift in a single day. It was the morning of her 18th birthday when she first felt the stirrings of fear that would soon grow into a storm of emotions. Her mother handed her a carefully folded letter with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Maria, this is for you," she said gently. The letter was from her father, written with words meant to protect and guide her, but to Maria, it felt like a message that would decide her future. She unfolded it carefully, noticing the crisp handwriting, and read the words aloud in a whisper. Her family had arranged her marriage. She had known that her family had plans for her future, as most girls in her town did, but she had never imagined it would come so soon. She was only 18, barely grown, and the idea of leaving everything she had ever known terrified her. Her mind swirled with questions. Who was this man she was to marry? Would she even like him? Would he understand her? Or would she have to change herself entirely to fit his expectations? Her parents tried to reassure her, but Maria could feel the tension in the room. Her father spoke softly, telling her that Kaya, the man she was to marry, came from a respected family and that he would care for her. Her mother added that she must trust in the path her family had chosen for her, but Maria's heart pounded with uncertainty. Trusting someone you have never met, she thought, is not easy. The following days were a blur of preparations. Maria's home was filled with activity. Relatives sewing her wedding dress, neighbors offering advice, and her younger cousins practicing songs for the ceremony. Maria tried to focus on the details, the color of the ribbons, the pattern of the lace, but her mind kept wandering back to the thought of Kaya. She knew little about him except that he was from the Apache community and had a reputation for being kind and honorable. But reputation, she realized, could not erase the nervous knot in her stomach. Her friends tried to cheer her up. They whispered plans for the wedding celebration and told her that marriage was a new adventure, something exciting rather than frightening. Maria forced a smile, trying to believe them, but deep inside she felt a lingering fear. She worried that she might never adjust, that she might miss her old life too much, or worse, that she might never find happiness in a life chosen for her by others. On the day of the wedding, Maria awoke before dawn. The house was quiet except for the soft rustle of her family preparing for the day. Her heart felt heavy as she dressed in the delicate white gown her mother had spent weeks perfecting. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, seeing the young girl she had always been, but also a woman stepping into a future she could not fully understand. Her eyes welled up with tears, not out of sadness for leaving home, but out of fear for what lay ahead. When the time came to leave for the ceremony, the streets were decorated with flowers and ribbons. Villagers gathered to watch, offering smiles and blessings. Maria tried to match their smiles, but her heart felt like it was in someone else's chest. She was nervous not only about meeting Kaya, but about the life they were about to begin together, a life that seemed so foreign and unknown. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Maria remembered the scent of fresh flowers, the soft music that played in the background, and the faces of her family and friends, all smiling and wishing her well. Kaya stood at the front, dressed in traditional attire, calm and composed. Maria's first glimpse of him stirred a mix of curiosity and nervousness. He was older than her, taller and with a quiet strength in his presence. Yet there was something gentle in his eyes, a kindness that seemed to reach out to her silently. As they exchanged vows, Maria struggled to focus. She repeated the words carefully, wondering if Kaya truly understood the whirlwind of emotion she carried inside her. She noticed him smile softly at her, a simple gesture that made her heart flutter. She wasn't sure why, but it gave her a small measure of comfort. She realized that while fear was overwhelming, it didn't have to define the entire experience. Perhaps, she thought, there was room for hope, even in this unfamiliar path. After the ceremony, the celebrations continued with music, laughter, and food. Maria tried to join in, dancing lightly and greeting guests, but a part of her mind always returned to Kaya. She wanted to know him, to understand him, to see if this arranged life could somehow become a life filled with affection and trust. But she reminded herself to be patient. Trust, she knew, had to grow slowly, like a plant watered carefully day by day. That evening, as the sun began to set, Maria's family gathered for the final part of the wedding, the moment when she would leave her family home to start her new life with Kaya.
Her mother hugged her tightly, whispering words of love and advice.
Her father patted her shoulder, urging her to be brave. Maria nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. She felt a mixture of sadness and anticipation. She was leaving the world she knew, but stepping into a life that could hold unexpected joys. As she approached Kaya, she noticed how calm and composed he remained. He extended his hand gently, and she took it, feeling the warmth of his touch. His eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, the fear inside her softened. He didn't speak much, but his presence alone was reassuring. Maria realized that while the future was uncertain, she was not entirely alone. There was a man who seemed willing to walk beside her, carefully and patiently. That night, Maria lay awake in her new room, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of Kaya's home. The air felt different, the walls taller, the space quieter, in a way that made her feel small. Her thoughts drifted back to her family, her childhood, and the life she had left behind. She cried quietly, not out of regret, but out of the overwhelming weight of change. She wondered if she had the strength to embrace this new chapter, if she could ever feel comfortable and safe in a life that had been chosen for her. Even in her uncertainty, a small voice inside whispered that change was not always cruel. Perhaps love, respect, and kindness could grow in ways she could not yet imagine. Perhaps this man, Kaya, who seemed patient and gentle, could help her discover a life she had never dreamed of. With that thought, she drifted into a restless sleep, the first night of her new life stretching ahead with a mix of fear, hope, and the faintest glimmer of trust. Maria's journey had just begun. She didn't know what the days ahead would bring, but she was about to learn that true strength comes not from avoiding fear, but from facing it with an open heart. And little did she know, the man waiting beside her was ready to show her that love can bloom even in the most unexpected circumstances. The wedding night was quieter than Maria expected. After the ceremony, the celebrations had wound down. Guests had left, leaving the couple alone in the room that was now theirs. The air smelled faintly of flowers, the same flowers that had decorated the ceremony, but everything else felt strange and unfamiliar. Maria stood at the doorway, clutching the edge of her gown, her heart pounding like a wild drum. The reality of her new life pressed down on her, heavier than any words could describe. She looked at Kaya, who stood patiently a few steps away. He didn't rush toward her or speak immediately. He simply watched, giving her space, as if he understood that this night was not just about marriage. It was about trust, about two lives beginning to intertwine.
Maria's chest tightened. She wanted to feel brave, to smile, to act as though everything was normal, but the weight of her fears was too strong.
Slowly, she sank onto the edge of the bed, her fingers trembling as they clutched the soft fabric of her gown. Tears began to fall. They started as a trickle, and soon became a quiet stream rolling down her cheeks without warning. Maria did not try to stop them. Birth. She cried for the life she had left behind, for the comfort of her family's arms, for the childhood memories that now felt distant and unreachable. She cried for the unknown, for the man she barely knew who was now to be her husband, and for the strange, uncertain world that lay ahead.
Kaya watched quietly, his expression unreadable but gentle.
He could see the fear in her eyes, the vulnerability in the way she hugged herself tightly. He wanted to speak, to say something comforting, but he knew that words were not always the answer. Sometimes, the most powerful act was patience. He slowly approached, sitting at a respectful distance on a chair, and simply waited, letting Maria cry without interruption. Break. In the quiet room, Maria's sobs eventually slowed, though her tears continued to fall. She felt small and fragile, as if the world had grown too big for her. She glanced at Kaya through her wet lashes, uncertain. She worried that he might be frustrated or disappointed, but instead she saw something unexpected, understanding. His eyes held no judgment, no impatience. There was only a calm that seemed to reach out and embrace her without touching her, a silent message that he would not force her to feel anything she was not ready to feel. "Maria," Kaya said softly, his voice barely more than a whisper. "It's okay. You don't have to do anything tonight."
You don't have to pretend! You can just be!
His words were simple, but they had a weight that Maria had not anticipated. They were not commands or instructions. They were permission, an acknowledgement of her fear and her humanity. For the first time since the wedding, she felt a small spark of relief. She nodded slightly, unable to speak, and returned her gaze to her hands. The room was silent again, except for the faint rustling of the sheets and the quiet sound of her breathing. Maria's thoughts wandered to her family, to the life she had left behind. She remembered her mother's gentle voice, her father's quiet encouragement, the laughter of her younger siblings. She felt a pang of sadness so deep that it made her chest ache, but she also felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this new life, though unfamiliar, could hold moments of happiness too. Perhaps she could find comfort here, in small pieces, day by day. Kaya shifted slightly in his chair, careful not to startle her. "You're scared?" he said softly, as if stating a fact rather than asking a question. Maria blinked at him, surprised that he could see something she felt so deeply hidden. He continued.
I understand.
"This is new for both of us. I don't want you to be afraid of me. I want you to feel safe."
Maria felt a lump in her throat.
No one had ever spoken to her like that before, not with such patience, not with such calm assurance. She had expected a husband to be demanding, to expect her to perform a role immediately. But Kaya's words were different. They were not about control or expectation. They were about understanding, about building trust slowly, gently. Breath. She swallowed hard and whispered, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can be married. I don't know if I can love anyone right now." Kaya nodded, his expression kind. "Psst. I don't expect you to love me tonight, Maria. Love is not something we can force. We start with respect, with patience, with small acts of care. That is how trust grows. That is how love begins."
His words stayed with her long after he said them.
Maria realized that this was not just a test of her courage. It was a beginning. She didn't have to have everything figured out immediately. She didn't have to feel love on the first night. What mattered was that there was someone beside her who was willing to walk slowly, gently, alongside her, allowing her to find her place in this new life at her own pace. For hours, they sat in silence. Maria cried less frequently now, her tears softer, more like a quiet release of the emotions that had been bottled up inside her. Kaya did not try to stop her. He did not offer empty platitudes. Instead, he simply remained there, present, a steady presence that made the room feel less overwhelming. Slowly, Maria began to feel the tension in her body ease, her breath returning to a more normal rhythm. Eventually, Maria spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm afraid that I won't be able to fit into your world, that I won't understand your ways."
Kaya smiled softly, a gentle warmth in his expression.
"And I am afraid, too," he admitted. "Afraid that I might not understand your world, that I might not see all that you need. But that is why we have to learn together. We teach each other, we listen to each other, and little by little, we create a life that belongs to both of us." Maria felt a strange mix of relief and wonder. She had never imagined that a man could speak so openly about fear, so honestly about the uncertainty of life. In that moment, she realized that marriage was not simply about ceremony or obligation. It was about partnership, about facing challenges together, about holding space for each other's fears and hopes alike. Hours passed, and the night grew deeper. Maria felt tired, both from the day's excitement and from the emotional storm she had weathered. She lay back on the bed, still holding her hands tightly in front of her, and Kaya gently pulled a chair closer to the bed. He did not intrude, did not demand closeness. He simply stayed nearby, his presence a silent reassurance. For the first time that night, Maria felt a glimmer of peace. She realized that tears were not a sign of weakness, but a way of releasing the weight of fear and expectation. She realized that she did not have to pretend to be strong, that it was okay to be scared, and that she could allow herself to take small steps toward trust and understanding. Kaya, sensing her growing calm, spoke once more. "Maria, I know this night is difficult, but tomorrow is another day. And the day after that. Each day, we will learn a little more about each other. You do not have to be perfect, and neither do I. We simply have to care patiently and let love grow in its own time." Maria nodded, feeling a quiet warmth in her chest. She realized that while she did not yet feel the full weight of love, she felt something important, a sense of safety, a sense that this man truly wanted her well-being, and that he was willing to meet her where she was. That thought alone was enough to bring her a measure of comfort, enough to let her close her eyes and allow sleep to finally come. As she drifted off, Maria's last thoughts were of hope. Hope that her fears could be softened with kindness, that her heart could open in ways she had not yet imagined, and that perhaps this marriage, which had seemed so frightening at first, could become a life filled with respect, trust, and gentle affection. But for the first time that night, she felt that it might hold something beautiful, if only she and Kaya took it one step at a time. And so, the first night passed, not with instant love, not with dramatic passion, but with understanding, patience, and the quiet promise that real love often begins not in grand gestures, but in the gentle acknowledgement of each other's fears, and the willingness to walk forward together. The days that followed Maria's wedding night were unlike anything she had ever experienced. Waking up in a new home, in a room that smelled faintly of pine wood and herbs, Maria felt both anxious and curious. Everything was unfamiliar: the sounds, the layout of the house, the quiet rhythm of Kaya's life. Yet, despite the strangeness, there was a gentle consistency in Kaya's presence that comforted her. He moved through the house with calm purpose, never rushing her, never expecting her to act in ways she was not ready for. The morning after their wedding, Kaya prepared breakfast himself. The smell of toasted bread and brewed coffee filled the small kitchen. He had learned that Maria liked her tea strong, with just a touch of honey. When he brought it to her, he smiled softly, not demanding thanks or attention. Maria felt a flutter in her chest, a mix of surprise and warmth. In her childhood home, no one had ever gone to such lengths simply to care for her comfort.
"Good morning, Maria," Kaya said quietly, his eyes meeting hers with gentle attention. "Did you sleep well?" Maria nodded, stirring her tea with a delicate hand.
I slept enough, I think. Thank you for the tea."
Kaya simply smiled and moved to sit at the table across from her.
He didn't ask her to talk if she wasn't ready. Back, he only gave her space, offering companionship without pressure. For Maria, this small act, so ordinary yet so thoughtful, was more powerful than any grand gesture. She realized that love, she hoped, could start in moments like these, in quiet attention, in small consideration, in patience. Over the next few days, Kaya's care became a steady presence in her life. He did not overwhelm her with affection or demand immediate closeness. Instead, he showed love in small, consistent ways. He helped her learn the house's routines, explained the chores and responsibilities, and gently shared stories about his family, his childhood, and the traditions of the Apache community. Maria listened with interest, realizing that there was a richness to his life she had never known, a world full of music, art, and respect for nature.
At first, Maria's curiosity was cautious.
She asked questions, careful not to reveal too much of her inner fear. Kaya answered patiently, never belittling her questions or assuming she should already know. One afternoon, while sitting together on the porch watching the sun dip below the hills, Maria asked about the stars.
"Did your people always look at the stars this way?" she inquired.
Kaya nodded.
"Yes."
"We see them as guides, as teachers. Each star has a story. When we look up, we remember our ancestors and the lessons they taught us. It helps us feel connected, even when the world seems vast and overwhelming."
Maria listened, fascinated. She had never thought of the sky in such a way.
The stars had always been something pretty to look at, distant and untouchable. But now, through Kaya's words, they felt alive with meaning. She realized that his world, though different from hers, held beauty that she could learn to appreciate.
One morning, Maria found herself struggling with a simple task, baking bread for the first time in Kaya's kitchen. She had tried before, but the dough seemed uncooperative, refusing to rise as it should.
Frustrated, she almost gave up. Kaya appeared quietly behind her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder.
"Take your time," he said softly. "There is no rush."
"We can do this together." Maria looked up at him, startled by the calm reassurance in his voice. Together they worked the dough, laughing at its stubbornness, celebrating each small success. By the time the bread was golden and warm, Maria felt a sense of accomplishment she hadn't realized she could feel. It was more than just baking bread. It was the knowledge that Kaya was not judging her, that he wanted to share the experience, not control it. As days turned into weeks, Maria began noticing the patterns of Kaya's care. He remembered small details about her preferences, asked gently about her thoughts and feelings, and always gave her the choice to accept or decline his attention. One evening, he asked if she would like to hear a traditional Apache song. Hesitant but curious, Maria nodded. Kaya sang softly, his voice low and steady, and Maria felt an unexpected calm settle over her. The song was unfamiliar, but there was a beauty in it that spoke to her heart. Desperation was not a burden, but an opportunity to see the world differently, to grow in ways she had never imagined.
There were moments, of course, when Maria still felt fear and doubt.
She missed her family, her old friends, and the life she had known. She worried that she might never truly belong in this new home, that her differences might become obstacles she could not overcome. Kaya noticed these moments too, not with irritation but with patience. He would simply sit near her, sometimes speaking softly, sometimes just sharing the silence, letting her process her emotions without judgment. One rainy afternoon, Maria sat by the window watching droplets race down the glass. She felt a heavy weight of homesickness pressing down on her. Kaya joined her quietly, offering a cup of warm cocoa without a word. Maria accepted it with a nod, sipping slowly, and found herself talking about her childhood, the fields she had played in, the songs she had sung with her siblings, the smell of her mother's cooking on special occasions. Kaya listened, asking gentle questions, and Maria felt a strange mix of relief and connection. She realized that sharing her memories with him did not make her weak, it made her feel understood. Through these small interactions, Maria began to understand a truth she had never considered before. Love was not an instant flame, nor was it a demand. Love could be quiet, steady, and patient. It could be built through kindness, respect, and the willingness to see the other person fully, with all their fears and imperfections. She saw this in Kaya every day, in the way he remembered the little things, in the way he offered support without judgment, in the way he shared his own life without overwhelming hers. The first time Maria laughed genuinely with Kaya was during a simple cooking mishap. She had tried to make a stew, but the ingredients had gone in wrong proportions and the flavor was odd. Instead of scolding her, Kaya tasted it carefully, then made a funny face that made Maria burst into laughter. It was a sound she hadn't realized she had missed, the carefree, light laughter of someone feeling safe. Kaya joined in, and in that shared moment, Maria felt a spark of trust and companionship. As the days continued, Maria's feelings grew more complex. She felt gratitude for his patience, admiration for his gentle strength, and curiosity about the life they were beginning to share. She still felt fear at times, but it was no longer paralyzing.
Instead, it became something she could acknowledge and work through, knowing that Kaya would walk beside her.
Her rasp, she began to see that perhaps the tears she had cried on their wedding night were not just about fear, but also about the weight of change, the difficulty of stepping into a life that was unknown. And now, slowly, those tears were giving way to something new. Trust. One evening, after a long day of tending to the garden together, Maria sat on the porch with Kaya, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. She realized she could talk to him, truly talk, without fear of judgment. She could share her thoughts, her worries, and her small joys, and he would listen with care. It was in these quiet, shared moments that she began to feel a deep sense of connection. Kaya, sensing her growing comfort, spoke softly. Maria, I know this life is new and strange. I know it is not always easy. But every day, we learn a little more about each other. Every day, we build something that belongs to both of us. That is how life and love grow. Maria nodded, feeling warmth spread through her chest. She realized that she did not yet feel the full weight of love, but she felt something equally important: trust, respect, and a growing sense of hope. She understood that love could bloom slowly, nurtured by kindness, patience, and understanding. And in Kaya, she saw a partner who was willing to nurture that love with her, step by step, day by day. The days continued, and with each shared meal, each quiet conversation, each gentle act of care, Maria felt herself opening in ways she had not imagined.
She began to appreciate the beauty of Kaya's world, the wisdom in his traditions, and the sincerity of his heart.
Braven's breaths rasped through the fluids. She began to understand that love was not something that could be forced, but something that grew quietly, steadily, in the presence of patience and respect. By the end of those first few weeks, Maria felt a small, steady warmth in her chest, a sense that perhaps life could be kind and fulfilling even in the midst of change. But she was beginning to see that her tears and fears had not been in vain. They had led her to a life where love was possible, not through instant passion, but through the quiet, enduring acts of care that Kaya offered every day. And in that understanding, she felt the first true glimmer of hope for the future. They were beginning to build together. The weeks turned into months, and Maria began to feel a quiet rhythm to her new life with Kaya. Each day brought small challenges, but also small joys, and with each shared moment, her heart slowly opened in ways she had never imagined. The initial fear that had gripped her on her wedding night no longer consumed her. It still lingered sometimes, like a shadow at the edge of her thoughts, but it had lost its power. In its place grew something subtle and strong, a bond formed through patience, understanding, and shared experience. Kaya's presence had become a steady comfort in her life. He had a way of noticing things that others might overlook. He remembered the way Maria liked her tea, the songs she hummed when she was nervous, and the stories she told about her childhood.
These were small details, but they mattered.
Maria realized that care was not always loud or dramatic. It could be quiet, consistent, and thoughtful, and sometimes that was more powerful than any grand gesture. One sunny morning, Kaya suggested they take a walk through the nearby hills. Maria hesitated at first, worried about leaving the familiarity of their home. But Kaya's calm reassurance encouraged her. "We can go slowly," he said. "There is no rush. We just walk and talk and maybe notice the world around us." Maria nodded, and together they stepped into the crisp morning air. As they walked, Kaya pointed out the plants and animals along the path. He explained which herbs were used for cooking and which had healing properties. He told her stories about his people, stories of courage, wisdom, and respect for nature. Maria listened, fascinated. She realized that his world was rich with meaning, and that by learning about it, she could discover new parts of herself as well. For the first time, she felt that being part of his life did not mean giving up her own identity. It meant growing together with someone who cared. The walk ended at a small stream, its water sparkling in the sunlight. Maria sat on a smooth rock, dipping her fingers into the cool water. Kaya sat beside her, close enough to offer companionship, but not so close as to make her uncomfortable. The silence between them was not awkward. It was peaceful. Maria realized that true closeness was not always about talking or being physically near. It could be about sharing space and feeling understood without words. Over the following weeks, they spent more time together in simple ways. They cooked meals, tended the small garden behind the house, and even worked on weaving mats and baskets, a tradition Kaya had learned from his family. Maria found herself enjoying these tasks, not just for the work itself, but because they were shared experiences, breaths. She laughed when mistakes were made, and Kaya laughed with her, never at her. She began to understand that joy could grow from shared effort, and love could grow from mutual respect. One afternoon, while preparing a meal together, Maria accidentally spilled some flour on Kaya's shirt. She gasped, expecting him to scold her or show annoyance, but instead, he smiled gently. "It's all right," he said. "We can wash it later. The flour isn't going anywhere, and neither are we." Maria felt her cheeks warm, not from embarrassment, but from the realization that his patience was limitless. She did not have to be perfect, and that alone made her feel safe. As their days together unfolded, Maria began to feel emotions she had never expected. Rob. She found herself noticing the way Kaya's eyes crinkled when he smiled, the softness in his voice when he spoke to her gently, the way he respected her thoughts and feelings. She began to understand that love was not always a sudden, overwhelming feeling. It could be quiet, steady, and nurturing. She could feel it growing between them, not in dramatic gestures, but in the accumulation of kindness, patience, and understanding. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun dip behind the hills, Maria felt a surge of trust that surprised her. She turned to Kaya, her voice soft but honest. I never thought I could feel at peace in a new place with someone I barely knew. But with you, I feel safe. I feel like maybe I can belong here. Ray. Kaya smiled, his eyes reflecting the fading sunlight.
And I never thought I could feel so responsible for someone's happiness.
But with you, I want to make sure you feel loved and respected every day. We will grow together, Maria, and build something that belongs to both of us. Her heart warmed at his words. Maria realized that love was not just a feeling. It was a choice, a series of actions, a willingness to care for someone else while allowing them to grow and change. She felt a deep sense of gratitude that Kaya was choosing her in this way, patiently, consistently, and with genuine care.
Their bond strengthened even more during a visit to Kaya's family.
Maria was nervous at first, unsure how she would be received, but Kaya's presence beside her gave her courage. His family welcomed her warmly, sharing stories, laughter, and traditional meals. Maria began to see that she was not just entering Kaya's life. She was becoming part of a community that valued kindness, respect, and shared joy. Drowned in despair. She realized that family, she had thought, was not just about blood. It was about the people who chose to walk with you, support you, and care for you. During the visit, Maria had a moment of emotional breakthrough. She and Kaya were sitting quietly by a small fire, watching the flames dance in the evening darkness. She felt a sudden rush of emotion, remembering her fears from the wedding night, the tears she had cried, and the uncertainty she had felt. But now she also remembered the patience, the understanding, and the quiet love Kaya had shown her. She took a deep breath, feeling a sense of clarity she had never known. Kaya, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I think I'm starting to understand. Love. It isn't just about feeling it all at once. It's about caring every day, in small ways. Great. And I feel that with you. Kaya reached for her hand, holding it gently in his own. Maria, that is exactly it. Love grows slowly, quietly, like a plant. It needs care, attention, and time. And I will care for it and for you every day. Breaking. In that moment, Maria felt a shift in her heart. She realized that her initial fear had not disappeared entirely, but it had transformed into something new. Trust, hope, and the beginnings of affection. But she began to see Kaya not just as her husband, but as a partner, a companion, and a source of steady comfort. She understood that their life together would not always be easy, but it could be filled with moments of joy, understanding, and shared growth. As the months passed, Maria and Kaya continued to build their life together. They faced small challenges, learning to work together in the household, navigating differences in upbringing, and adjusting to each other's habits. But each challenge strengthened their bond. They celebrated small victories, like successfully preparing a complicated meal or completing a task together, and supported each other through minor frustrations and disappointments. Maria realized that happiness was not found in perfection, but in the willingness to face life together, with patience, respect, and care. One rainy afternoon, as they sat together listening to the soft patter of raindrops against the roof, Maria reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the tears she had cried on her wedding night, the fear that had seemed so overwhelming, and the uncertainty that had clouded her first days with Kaya. Now those fears felt distant, softened by the consistent acts of kindness and patience that Kaya had shown her. She realized that love, she hoped, could truly grow in a gentle, steady way, and that her heart was beginning to open to it. By the end of the season, Maria felt a deep sense of contentment. She knew she was still learning, still growing, and still discovering the many layers of life with Kaya. But she also knew that she was no longer alone, no longer afraid of the unknown. She had a partner who respected her, cared for her, and walked beside her with patience and understanding. Rasp. She felt gratitude for the life they were building together, and a quiet joy in the knowledge that love, true love, often revealed itself not in sudden bursts, but in the steady accumulation of care, trust, and shared experience. Maria's bond with Kaya had deepened, not through grand gestures or instant passion, but through the small, everyday moments that mattered most. A shared meal, a kind word, a gentle touch, a story told under the stars. She had learned that love was patient, understanding, and rooted in respect. And as she looked at Kaya, smiling softly beside her, she felt a warmth in her chest that told her this was only the beginning. Their journey together had many chapters ahead, and for the first time she was eager to see what the future held. Time had passed, and Maria found herself settling more comfortably into her life with Kaya. What had once felt unfamiliar and overwhelming now carried a quiet rhythm, a sense of belonging she had never imagined possible. Each day brought small joys, the soft morning light streaming through their window, the scent of herbs in the kitchen, the laughter shared over a slightly burnt loaf of bread, the gentle touch of Kaya's hand when she least expected it. Fast. She began to realize that love, the kind she had feared she would never feel, had been growing quietly all along. One bright morning, Maria stood in the garden watching the dew glisten on the leaves. Kaya approached quietly, carrying a basket of freshly picked vegetables. He smiled, a warm, steady smile that made her heart flutter in a way she no longer found frightening. She felt a sense of peace in his presence, a trust so deep that it filled the spaces that fear had once occupied. "Good morning, Maria," Kaya said softly, placing the basket beside her. "I thought we could make a stew today. You wanted to try it last week, remember?" Maria nodded, smiling. "Yes, I'd like that. And maybe this time it won't be burnt." She laughed, a sound that felt free and unburdened, echoing the first laughs she had shared with him months ago. Kaya chuckled as well, and together they began preparing the meal, the kitchen filled with warmth and the scent of fresh vegetables. As they worked side by side, Maria reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the tears she had cried on her wedding night, the fear that had seemed so overwhelming, the nights she had felt lost in a world that was not her own. Now those moments felt like a distant memory softened by the steady presence of Kaya, his patience, and the small acts of care that had slowly opened her heart. She realized that love was not a sudden dramatic flame. It was a steady light that grew brighter with each shared experience, each kind word, each moment of understanding. After the meal, they decided to take a walk to the nearby stream, a place that had become their shared refuge. The air was warm, and the sunlight danced on the water, casting shimmering reflections on the trees. Maria felt a sense of serenity she had never known. She turned to Kaya, her voice gentle but confident.
Kaya, I want to tell you something, she began. I think I am ready to accept my life here. I am ready to love you in my own way and to be a part of this life we are building together.
Burris. Kaya's eyes softened, a mixture of warmth and pride in his expression. He reached for her hand, holding it firmly but gently. Maria, you do not have to rush anything. Love is not about urgency. But hearing your words, it means the world to me. We will grow together, and I will honor the love we are creating every day. The words settled in Maria's heart, and for the first time she felt a complete sense of belonging. She realized that her initial fear had been transformed into trust, her uncertainty into confidence, and her tears into hope. She had learned that true love was patient, respectful, and rooted in understanding. It was not about instant passion or dramatic gestures. It was about choosing to care, to be present, and to nurture each other's hearts. In the days that followed, Maria and Kaya's bond continued to deepen. They shared small adventures, trips to nearby hills, afternoons spent weaving mats and baskets, evenings watching the stars and talking about their dreams. Each shared experience strengthened their connection, building a foundation of trust and mutual respect. Maria found herself laughing more freely, speaking more openly, and embracing life with a sense of curiosity she had never known before. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Kaya brought out a small hand-carved flute, an instrument he had learned to play from his father. He played a soft, melodic tune, one that spoke of home, of memories, of love that was patient and enduring. Maria listened captivated, feeling the music resonate deep within her. She realized that love could be expressed in many ways, not just in words, but in gestures, in shared silence, in the gentle rhythm of life together. As the seasons changed, Maria grew more confident in her role not just as Kaya's wife, but as a partner in life. She took joy in contributing to the household, in tending the garden, in learning about the customs and traditions that were important to Kaya. Jess began to understand that being part of his life did not mean losing herself. It meant discovering new strengths, new joys, and new aspects of her own heart. Kaya, too, seemed to flourish alongside her. He continued to show patience, understanding, and care, never taking for granted the trust Maria had placed in him. He encouraged her to express her thoughts and dreams, to explore her interests, and to build a life that reflected both of their values. Together, they created a partnership based on respect, love, and the quiet understanding that life's beauty often lay in small, shared moments. One particularly memorable day, they decided to plant a small orchard behind the house. The task was labor-intensive, but they worked side by side, laughing at mistakes and celebrating small successes. As they planted the young trees together, Maria felt a profound sense of connection, not just to Kaya, but to the life they were cultivating. She realized that love was like the orchard. It required care, patience, and nurturing, and in time it would grow strong and bear fruit. The community also began to see the transformation in Maria. Friends and family noticed how she had become more confident, more joyful, and more at peace. They saw the bond she shared with Kaya, the respect and affection that had developed between them. Maria felt a quiet pride in how far she had come, but she also knew that her happiness was not just the result of her own efforts. It was the product of two hearts willing to grow together, to learn together, and to care for each other every day. As the years passed, Maria and Kaya faced challenges, as all couples do, but they met them with the same patience and understanding that had brought them together. They learned to communicate openly, to compromise, and to support each other in both joy and difficulty. Through it all, their love deepened, not in dramatic gestures, but in the quiet consistency of shared life, shared responsibilities, and shared dreams. One evening, as they watched the sun set over the hills, Maria reflected on her journey. She remembered the tears she had cried on her wedding night, the fear that had seemed so overwhelming, the uncertainty that had clouded her early days with Kaya. And she realized that every tear, every moment of doubt had been part of the path that led her to this place, a place of love, trust, and belonging. She felt a deep gratitude for Kaya, for his patience, his kindness, and his unwavering care. Turning to him, she spoke softly, her voice filled with emotion.
Kaya, I never imagined that love could feel like this.
Not just passion, but peace, trust, and happiness. You have shown me what it means to care for someone deeply, and I want you to know I love you. Kaya took her hands in his eyes shining with emotion. Maria, I have loved you from the moment I first saw your heart, even before you could see mine. And now hearing your words, I feel complete. We have built something real, something enduring, and I promise to continue nurturing our love every day for the rest of our lives. In that moment, Maria felt a profound sense of fulfillment. But she understood that true love was not the sudden, overwhelming fire she had once feared, but the quiet, steady warmth that grew from understanding, patience, and shared care. She felt safe, valued, and deeply cherished. She had found a home not just in Kaya's house, but in his heart, and in the life they had chosen to build together. Breath. Their love continued to flourish, grounded in the lessons they had learned along the way. That trust must be earned, that patience is a form of kindness, that shared experiences strengthen the bond between hearts, and that true love grows gradually, quietly, and beautifully. Maria realized that the tears of her wedding night were not a mark of weakness. They were the beginning of a journey that had led her to a love far deeper and more fulfilling than she had ever imagined.
In time, Maria and Kaya's home became a place of laughter, learning, and warmth.
Friends and neighbors often visited, drawn not just by the beauty of the house or the bounty of the garden, but by the genuine love and respect that radiated between them. Maria found herself sharing stories of her childhood, learning more of Kaya's traditions, and celebrating the blend of their worlds. Breath. Each day they discovered new ways to care for each other, to support each other, and to deepen the love that had grown from patience and understanding. Maria's heart was full. She had learned that love was not instant, not always easy, but always possible when two hearts were willing to nurture it. She had learned that fear could transform into trust, doubt into hope, and tears into joy. And as she looked at Kaya smiling beside her, she felt a quiet certainty. This was the life she had always needed, the love she had always hoped for, and the beginning of a future filled with promise.